What is going on, everyone? Welcome back to this week's installment on The Lake Show, and I really appreciate you all making me a part of your day again. And last week, I went over the culmination of all of NFL free agency, pretty much all the big moves and the more recent moves that were made. We are currently still waiting for Aaron Rodgers to actually make a decision whether he's going to be a Giant or whether he's going to be a Pittsburgh Steeler, maybe possibly a Minnesota Viking, but it's not looking like that's going to be the case. But, you know, all eyes are on Aaron Rodgers at this point. He's basically the last domino that's going to fall before the NFL draft commences at the end of April. So last week I discussed a little bit about the Cincinnati Bengals and the Pittsburgh Steelers and their entire situations going on in that organization. And I tell you, the Steelers just continue to make me angry. They really do. And I really don't know what to say about Pittsburgh. I don't know their plan. I don't know what they plan on doing for the future. They are starting to act like a tire fire organization. And I never thought in a million years that I'd be saying that about the Pittsburgh Steelers. Literally, the standard was the standard of the NFL for a long period of time. But again, no playoff wins since 2016, and you know, they've just getting bounced out of the first round and the wild card round each and every single year. No plan at quarterback, letting all of our good weapons go. Can't get the offensive line right. Defense sometimes injured, sometimes healthy, but we can't rely on them to bail us out anymore. So honestly, excuse me, I really don't know what's going on in Pittsburgh, but you know, I got a fun episode today. So a couple weeks ago, I made my first NFL mock draft, and as you all join in today, that is exactly what I'm going to be doing. It is mine, Dom Lako's mock draft 2.0, and we are going to get started with that real soon. And as you all know, I'm a Bucked Up ambassador, so use promo code SHOW32, get yourself 20% off any and all pre-workout orders at buckedup.com. And again, I really appreciate you all who have subscribed to the channel. Keep liking, keep subscribing. If you're not already, please hit that like and subscribe button. You're really helping out the channel. And again, I thank my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ every single day for being able just to do this, have an amazing life, you know, even though sometimes life gets to us a lot and it gets stressful from time to time. And honestly, a lot of people get down in the dumps from time to time, but you know, it's why I wear this, and it's good remembrance of every single day that he's always with us, and he's changed my life for the better and has given me all the blessings in the world that I could possibly imagine, and I know he will continue to do so. He hasn't let me down yet, and I know for a fact he never will let me down. So, with that being said, let's get started with today, my mock draft 2.0, and with the first overall pick in the 2025 NFL Draft, the Tennessee Titans are going to select quarterback Cam Ward from the University of Miami. So in my first mock draft that I made, I had Shedeur Sanders going number one. That was basically because of the hype surrounding Shedeur Sanders. Is it Shedeur? Is it Cam? Is it someone else? All signs are pointing to whoever may have the first overall pick, and I'm doing the same format as I did the first overall, my first mock draft 1.0, where there will be no trades or anything. This is how I feel the draft would go post NFL Combine, and if no teams were trading with each other at all. This is based off the standings that they currently are in the NFL Draft. So first overall, Cam Ward has all the intangibles you want in a good quarterback that can be very successful at the NFL level. Again, people are going to call me a Miami homer. People love to hate on the University of Miami for whatever reason. But when you look at Cam Ward, he does not, you know, again, one of the critiques that I personally have with him is that he definitely holds the ball for too long. But in regards to accuracy, arm strength, arm angles, poise in the pocket, mobility, strength, endurance, you know, just he has all the intangibles, especially leadership. That dude came into the University of Miami and led that team to their first 10-win season since 2017, and only the second 10-win season in Miami since the year 2003. He is the ultimate leader. Even Mario Cristobal has said on multiple occasions that he is the best leader he's ever been around. And I think just the way he carries himself, that is going to immediately shift the culture in Tennessee, and it's going to shift the dynamic and trajectory of that franchise. So I have the Tennessee Titans taking Cam Ward first overall in the NFL draft. Excuse me. With the second overall pick in the 2025 NFL draft, the Cleveland Browns are going to select Abdul Carter. Now, I'm going to continuously flip-flop back and forth as the draft approaches. I'm going to do one more mock draft in the coming month before the NFL draft. Mainly probably a week before the draft. The week of the draft, I'm probably going to drop my 3.0 mock draft. But as of right now, I think Cleveland is a tire fire. We understand that the Deshaun Watson nonsense is, it's unfortunate that Cleveland has to live with that. Cleveland, for the longest time, has been building a team first and then trying to plug in a quarterback that can fit that dynamic, when in reality, they should get the quarterback right first and then build a team around them. I don't necessarily believe that they are wanting to take Shedeur Sanders. Again, Shedeur Sanders' stock keeps dropping from some reports that I've seen. Some reports have it as being bogus. I attribute that to his dad, Deion Sanders. A lot of people don't like him. But in regards to the NFL draft right now, as it currently stands, I have no reason to believe that Abdul Carter would not be the second pick in this draft going to Cleveland. Pairing Abdul Carter and Myles Garrett, I think that's something that Cleveland wants, and I definitely think that it'll be the more so probably the best pass rush in the entirety of the NFL. The best pass rushing duo in the NFL. So at number 2, I have the Cleveland Browns taking defensive end from Penn State, Abdul Carter. Now, with the third overall pick in the draft, the New York Giants are going to take quarterback Shedeur Sanders from Colorado. I don't buy necessarily all the drama that's happening in regards to that he may drop in the draft, he may completely drop out of the first round. I don't necessarily believe that, and I'm not necessarily the biggest fan of Shedeur Sanders. Again, he's a good athlete. He's a good quarterback. I think he's a B plus kind of prospect, whereas Cam Ward's a B plus, A minus kind of prospect, in my opinion. But when you look at Shedeur Sanders, I think one thing that will benefit him in the long run for the NFL is the fact that he got sacked so many times in college. I think he knows how to take a beating. And I think he's heading to an organization in the Giants where they have had offensive line issues for a long time. Even though the Giants have signed Jameis Winston, I'm of the firm believer they are getting their quarterback for the future, and I believe that quarterback of the future will be Shedeur Sanders. Despite all the rumors that Shedeur Sanders may slide out of the first round, I don't necessarily buy that. So I think that Shedeur Sanders falls to number 3, continuously for the Giants, trying to search for their franchise guy. I have the Giants taking quarterback Shedeur Sanders. And with the 4th overall pick in the 2025 NFL draft, I have the New England Patriots taking cornerback and wide receiver Travis Hunter from Colorado. When you look at the dynamic that Travis Hunter provides, I'm of the firm believer he's not personally the best player in the draft. I don't think it's his well-rounded play that is, upping his draft stock in a way. He was a good corner and he was a good receiver. He was not the best corner or the best receiver in college football last year. Despite winning the Biletnikoff Award or the best receiver award, I think that's the Biletnikoff Award, but either way, Travis Hunter is not the best wide receiver in this draft, but I think strictly because he can play both ways, he will add a certain dynamic that New England should be looking for right now. If you want Drake May to succeed, I think he's a far better receiver than he is a DB. That's just me personally, but if you have a guy who can at least be a safety blanket for Drake May, and on top of that, provide a spark on defense, I think the New England Patriots are only going to continue to trend upward. And I think Mike Vrabel is going to love a guy like Travis Hunter in his locker room. So personally, I have Travis Hunter with the 4th overall pick going to New England. Okay, with the 5th overall pick, I have the Jacksonville Jaguars taking defensive tackle from Michigan, Mason Graham. There's a lot of issues with Jacksonville. We all know that. In my first NFL mock draft I had the offensive tackle from LSU, Will Campbell, going to the Jacksonville Jaguars. But when you really think about it, that defense for Jacksonville was putrid. It was god-awful. Jacksonville in general was a tire fire of an organization. They need some top talent on that defensive side to at least get some sort of spark back. Again, I think we're overhyping Trevor Lawrence a little bit. He was supposed to be the second coming of Andrew Luck. It hasn't panned out. He's a middle-of-the-road quarterback. That's what Trevor Lawrence is. But again, I think partially it's because of the Jacksonville organization and culture. But if there's one thing that they need help on that defense. I can't name anybody of note that is truly elite on the Jacksonville Jaguars defense. And I think they can get started rebuilding that defense with defensive tackle Mason Graham. With the 6th overall pick, I have the Las Vegas Raiders taking running back Ashton Jeanty from Boise State. When you look at the Raiders, they traded for Geno Smith. They have Jacoby Myers and Brock Bowers. I guess the defense is somewhat okay. Somewhat is kind of a stretch right now, but when you look at the Raiders as a whole, I feel like they're going to draft a quarterback in the later rounds so they have their guy of the future. I thought for a while that Russell Wilson would have went back with Pete Carroll to Las Vegas, but again, that relationship turned sour back in Seattle years ago, so that made no sense. But they traded for Geno Smith, and I think Geno will do okay in Las Vegas. I'm not of the firm believer that Geno Smith is an otherworldly talent. Again, he won Comeback Player of the Year award a couple years ago, and I think he's a solid quarterback. I don't necessarily think you could win a Super Bowl with him, but if you want him to succeed, yes, he does need weapons. Jacoby Myers is a great start. I don't think he's a true number one, but again, he had 0 drops last year, which is an unprecedented kind of stat for a wide receiver because, everybody has drops except Jacoby Myers, who didn't have one last year. So you have Jacoby Myers, you have a stud in Brock Bowers in Las Vegas. So I think you just continue to add to possibly what could be an underrated offense this year. I definitely think the Raiders' offensive line needs a little bit of work, but again, I feel like this is a deep draft for offensive linemen. So I think that at the 6th overall pick, you have the Raiders. You'll take Ashton Jeanty. Number 7 overall pick, I have the New York Jets taking tight end Tyler Warren from Penn State. When you look at the Jets, they do need more weapons on offense, I feel. They have pieces. They have good defensive personnel and offensive personnel. I think you just continue to add that because they had no tight end help really last year, and I think Tyler Warren is the best tight end in this draft. So I think you do add another weapon to that Jets offense. And again, I get it that Justin Fields is not necessarily the quarterback you dream of, but if he does have a chance to succeed, it would be with a revamped offensive line and all the weapons at his disposal. And I think Tyler Warren fits that criteria for the New York Jets. I think, again, you have Garrett Wilson, you have Breece Hall, and I forget who their other receiver is, but they have decent weapons on offense. They do need a tight end. And I think if you want Justin Fields to succeed, you got to get him as many weapons as possible, and you got to be able to protect him. At that point, it's up to Justin Fields whether he is an NFL starter from here on out. In the rest of his career, going to the Jets, this might be his final opportunity to be a full-time starter in the NFL, at least prove himself. So I think you need as many weapons as possible when it comes to the New York Jets offense. So I personally believe they take Tyler Warren, tight end from Penn State. Now we're going on to the number 8 overall pick, where we have the Carolina Panthers. They need help at DB, safety. They need an edge rusher. They need a wide receiver. I think you go with best available at this point when it comes to skill position players. That would be Tet McMillan, wide receiver from Arizona, for me at least. So when you look at Bryce Young, everybody wants him to succeed. I know everybody wants him to succeed, but again, he needs weapons to be able to throw to. Wide receiver, I can't tell you one stud receiver on the Panthers right now. I can't. I'm being just brutally honest. Tet McMillan, I think, provides a new spark for him, for Bryce Young, for this offense. You still have Chuba Hubbard. So I think that's a good start. Again, I think Carolina's issues stem way deeper than just needing a couple skill position players. They do need an overhaul when it comes to this team. And I think Bryce Young, after getting benched earlier in the year last year, and then the way he performed towards the end of the year when he got the starting rollback, I think he's going to actually put the NFL on notice. I'm not saying Carolina is going to be a playoff team. As a matter of fact, I think they might finish last in their division, but I think they'll be more respectable, and I think you start by getting Bryce Young more weapons, and I think that goes to Tet McMillan, wide receiver from Arizona. Okay, now we're moving on to the number 9 overall pick. The New Orleans Saints are going to take cornerback Will Johnson, in my opinion. This, as much as the Saints need a quarterback, they need help everywhere. I think Kellen Moore is walking into a dire situation and a terrible situation, in my opinion. This is not necessarily the greatest organization right now, minus Sean Payton and Drew Brees, legendary run, which only ended up with one Super Bowl, unfortunately. The Saints have just been a tire fire. It's been a carousel at quarterback. It's been a carousel on the defensive backfield. It's just been a carousel of so many players since Brees retired and since Sean Payton left. But when you look at the Saints, that back end definitely needs help, and I think you go with best available at this point. I think you go with Will Johnson, even though he's been dealing with some nagging injuries and didn't participate in his pro day at Michigan. I think Will Johnson will still be a top 10 pick when he is healthy. He is a lockdown corner that can shut down pretty much anybody in the NFL. I think Will Johnson's going to be a stud in the NFL, and I think the New Orleans Saints take him at 9. 10th overall pick, I have the Chicago Bears taking offensive tackle from LSU, Will Campbell. This is basically just because you need to protect Caleb Williams. I know Coach Ben Johnson coming in, he's an offensive guru, and I think that, if anything, I've said it once and I've said it a million times, and I'll continuously say it, you have to protect your franchise guy. You have to protect your franchise quarterback. Will Campbell solves a lot of those issues on the offensive tackles spots, and the Bears have great wide receivers and running back talent. They can definitely use another running back. I don't think DeAndre Swift I don't think he's a bad back, but I don't think he's your typical, every down back. But this draft is very deep with running back talent. So I have the Chicago Bears taking Will Campbell, offensive tackle from LSU. Okay, now we're moving in to the I think we're going to see a lot of defensive players go off the board real soon. But at this point, I'm looking at the San Francisco 49ers at the 11th pick. Listen, they have a lot of issues. Their team is getting older, and it's just going to continuously get older. And I think at this point, I would say the 49ers, they definitely need help out on that defense after losing so many people. I think you would go with defensive end Mykel Williams. I think you could also make the argument that you would go secondary in here, which I have no problem with. But when you look at the Philadelphia Eagles, for example, How good are they? Well, they kept drafting Georgia defensive players. That's why their defense is so unbelievably stacked. There are so many holes that the 49ers need to fill because of age, because of contract, because of free agency, players that they've lost. I think that this calls for a defensive overhaul because they lost a lot of defensive pieces to free agency this year. So I think you get Young on the edge. You have Nick Bosa still, who's still solid when healthy. And now you bring in Mykel Williams, edge rusher from Georgia. Again, another dynamic duo in pass rushers that could turn out to be a fantastic defense in general. Okay, now we're moving on to the Dallas Cowboys. As much as I think the Dallas Cowboys need to draft a skill position player, I'm going based off of what I feel Dallas is notorious for doing. I'm going to have them take Shedeur Sanders, edge rusher from Texas A&M, just because I don't really trust Jerry Jones to make the right decisions. And as much as I would say that they need offensive help, despite my better judgment, I'm going with a defensive player because it just screams Dallas. And again, DeMarcus Lawrence is no longer a Cowboy. You still didn't pay Micah Parsons. All you have is CeeDee Lamb and Dak Prescott paid on roster. You signed Javonte Williams, who's, he's a okay running back, but he's not like Derrick Henry, as you guys should have pursued last free agency period. But going forward, I think Dallas is a mess, and I think Dallas is going to continuously acknowledge that they are a mess, and I think they're going to shock a lot of people by taking a defensive player. And I think it's just so Cowboys. So I have edge rusher Shedeur Sanders, edge rusher from Texas A&M, going to the Dallas Cowboys at 12. Now we're going to the Miami Dolphins at 13 overall. I have them taking Armand Membu from Missouri. If there's one thing that they do need, they need to keep Tua Tagovailoa healthy. You still have Tyreek Hill, even though he wants out for whatever reason. Again, leaving Kansas City and Patrick Mahomes for the bag, not necessarily the best decision he made. And as far as the Dolphins are concerned, you have a need to protect Tua to prevent him from getting more concussions in his career. So I think you go with best available at this point, which would be Armand Membu, offensive tackle from Missouri. If there's one thing that they have, great weapons, they have an okay defense when they're healthy. Again, health is the biggest issue for the Miami Dolphins going forward. If they want any shot to at least compete in the AFC, it all depends on their health. And I think nothing is more important than your quarterback's health, a.k.a. Tua. So I think you go with Armand Membu from Missouri. Now we're moving on to the Indianapolis Colts. They have issues everywhere. They really do. And I think Anthony Richardson is a bust of an NFL quarterback. But I definitely think they need help on the defensive side. I know they need a quarterback, but this quarterback draft is not the greatest. And I don't think that any other quarterback right now at this point in the draft would come off the board. So I have the Indianapolis Colts taking linebacker Jalen Walker from Georgia. If there's one thing that the Indianapolis Colts need, it's to shore up that defense a little bit, and I think Jalen Walker goes a long way. Now, we are with the 15th overall pick. I have the Atlanta Falcons taking safety Malachi Starks. They have a good enough offense. I have no doubt in my mind with Michael Penix at the helm. You have Drake London, Bijan Robinson, Kyle Pitts, an above-average offensive line. I think the Falcons, in my opinion, are a dark horse contender, not for the Super Bowl, but to make a decent playoff push. With Michael Penix at the helm, I think that the Falcons can make some noise in their division, probably win it. They're honestly going to be my pick to win the NFC South. So I think they go to shore up that defense, because that defense, as much as they need an edge rusher, because they have no edge rushers whatsoever. Matthew Judon did not work out. I still have them taking probably the best safety in the draft, arguably, and that's Malachi Starks. Now, moving on to 16, I have the Arizona Cardinals taking James Pierce Jr., edge rusher from Tennessee. This is because their defense is awful. They still got Kyler Murray. They have Marvin Harrison Jr. They have James Conner. The Cardinals, I think this is a make or break year for Kyler Murray. I really do. But that defense needs help, and I think any help would do it justice. But they definitely need an edge rusher, and I'm going with James Pierce, edge rusher from Tennessee. Okay, now we get into the Cincinnati Bengals at 17. They do the Bengals defense is literally garbage, and I think they're only going to get worse this year. So I think they do need help. They need help badly on the defensive side. So I think they go with Jahdae Barron, cornerback from Texas. At least you need something that can possibly slow down an offense. If we're being honest, the Cincinnati defense can't stop a nosebleed. They can stop a cold. They could not stop a sentence with a period. That's how bad the Cincinnati defense is. They need someone on the defensive side of the football that can actually provide a difference. Trey Hendrickson could, but we don't know whether or not he's going to continuously stay in Cincinnati. We don't know what's going to happen with Trey Hendrickson because he's already been given the go-ahead to, seek a trade partner. But looking at this going forward, I think Jahdae Barron makes more sense for Cincinnati at this position. You need to shore up your secondary. You got to give Joe Burrow's offense some help. They got T. Higgins. They got Jamar Chase. They got an okay offensive line. Going forward, this defense is going to make or break Cincinnati, and they're possibly going to waste all these good years that Joe Burrow is providing. 18, Seattle Seahawks. I got them taking offensive guard from Alabama, Tyler Booker. You paid Sam Darnold $100 million, and they got Jackson Smith-Njigba and Noah Fant at tight end. If they want to make this work, they got to protect him. Sam Darnold did not have a great year at the end of the year, especially the last 3 games. Sam Darnold did not play like a $100 million quarterback, but he's a $100 million quarterback now. He did have a fantastic season last year with Minnesota. Now let's see what he can do in Seattle. But again, you need to protect him. So I think you go with Tyler Booker, offensive guard from Alabama. Now we're moving on to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And it would not surprise me one bit. They definitely need an edge rusher and defensive help in general. So me personally, I'm going with Derek Harmon, defensive tackle from Oregon. If I'm Tampa Bay, I'm not really worried about the offense. Baker Mayfield has proven that he's worth his contract, in my opinion. Baker Mayfield has proven that he can orchestrate a good, productive offense. The defense does need help, and they do need help on the defensive side of the football on the interior part. So I think Derek Harmon, defensive tackle from Oregon, makes the most sense here. With the 20th overall pick, I have the Denver Broncos taking wide receiver from Texas, Matthew Golden. Now, when you look at Matthew Golden, I think he's one of the surefire favorites to be one of the best receivers coming out of this draft. And when you look at Denver, they are in win-now mode. With Bo Nix at quarterback, who looked like the most NFL-ready quarterback coming out of college with all those 60 starts he had. You have Sean Payton. They spent so much money in free agency. And now I think you add Matthew Golden to an already, upstarting offense. I think the Broncos are a dark horse contender next year in the AFC. I'm not saying they're going to win the Super Bowl, but I think they can definitely compete, and they can definitely compete in division this year, especially with the Chargers, especially with Mahomes and the Raiders. I think the Broncos are up and coming. The 21st overall pick, we have the Pittsburgh Steelers, and I have them taking quarterback Jaxson Dart. 3 quarterbacks going in the first round. In my opinion, Pittsburgh cannot wait anymore, even if they get Aaron Rodgers. If they don't get Aaron Rodgers, You better hope that Jaxson Dart does not shoot up the draft boards anymore so you can grab him. Pittsburgh is a mess. I would have personally liked them to go receiver at this position, but again, it wouldn't surprise me whatsoever if they didn't, just because Pittsburgh has so many issues, but they need a quarterback. And I think Jaxson Dart does have first-round quarterback potential and upside. So if I'm the Steelers, I'm throwing all my game plans out the window. I'm getting quarterback Jaxson Dart from Ole Miss. 22nd overall, I have the Chargers taking wide receiver from Ohio State, Emeka Egbuka. If there's one thing that the Chargers need, it's more help for Justin Herbert. They got Najee Harris in free agency. They have a great offensive line. They have Ladd McConkey. They have a good defense. They just need more weapons. And I think Emeka Egbuka makes perfect sense for the Los Angeles Chargers at this position. We're going to speed through these last 10 picks. I apologize, guys, if I'm running late. But we got the 23rd overall pick. We have the Green Bay Packers. They need help in a lot of different places, but I wouldn't be surprised if they did take wide receiver at this point. I think you go Luther Burden, the third wide receiver from Missouri. I think you need to give Jordan Love all the help he can get, especially on the offensive side of the football. He did not play well last year, and I think this might be possibly, I'm not setting it in stone, but it's possible this is a make or break year for Jordan Love. The Minnesota Vikings. I'll have them taking. Oh, this is tough. I'd have them taking safety Nick Emanwari from South Carolina. I apologize if I butchered that name, but if there's one thing Minnesota needs help with, it's on the back end. I think they're rolling with J.J. McCarthy this upcoming year, and I think he does have a lot of upside, especially after the season he had. Not the season he had, but when he was participating in the preseason last year, he did play very well before his injury, and I think he would have possibly been the starter over Darnold last year. So I think you give him help on the defense. I think the offense is going to be fine. You still have Aaron Jones. You still have Justin Jefferson, best in the league. I think they're rolling with J.J. McCarthy, but I think they do need a safety to shore up the defense. 25th overall pick, the Houston Texans are going to take offensive tackle from Texas, Kelvin Banks Jr. Again, you have C.J. Stroud. You have a good offense. You have a good defense. He had a little sophomore slump, but I think protection is a big thing. So I think it's very important that you do go with Kelvin Banks at this position, and I think that they indeed will. The Los Angeles Rams at the 26th overall pick go with linebacker Jahad Campbell from Alabama. The Rams have been hitting on draft picks left and right. Jared Verse last year, rookie. Cameron Kitchens last year, rookie. A lot of young players on that defense, and they played like a top unit in the NFL towards the back end of the season and nearly took out the Philadelphia Eagles, the eventual Super Bowl champions, in the I think it was wild card. Either way, they took him out in the play. They nearly took him out in the playoffs. I think they're going to shore up this defense, and I think Jahad Campbell for the Rams would be an instant hit. And I think the Rams are going to continuously trend upwards. Okay, now we have the 27th overall pick. We have the Baltimore Ravens. I think you go with best available. I think you definitely still need help on the defensive side. I think you go with Siobhan Revel, cornerback from East Carolina. You need help on the secondary. I think Baltimore, that might be their Achilles heel sometimes. They do need a receiver, but I think they'll eventually get that in a later round. But I can see the Baltimore Ravens shoring up the secondary again. With the 28th overall pick, I have... this is one of the more tough ones. But I will have the Lions taking... I'm going to have them take Josh Simmons, offensive tackle from Ohio State. Josh Simmons is very versatile, but I think he'll shine at the tackle position. I think if you give Jared Goff more protection, more so than he already has, because he's This is already the best offensive line in the league. I think they just continue to add that. And I think the Lions are still going to be a force to be reckoned with in the NFC. The Washington Commanders. I have them, this is going to be out of left field almost, but I'm going to have them take a running back at this position. I think they go with running back Omari and Hampton from North Carolina. I think they're just going to continuously add weapons for Jaden Daniels because they're a very dangerous team and they're going to be knocking on the door of the Super Bowl for the next 4 to 5 years. This is a perfect opportunity to just continue to add depth, and I think Omari and Hampton makes a lot of sense at this position for the Commanders. With the 30th overall pick, I think that the Buffalo Bills go with wide receiver Isaiah Bond from Texas. If there's one thing I think that the Bills do need, I think they're going to be fine on defense. I really do. But I honestly believe that, when you look at the Bills, they don't have that go-to threat anymore since Stephon Diggs left, but they don't necessarily need it. But I would not hurt the Buffalo Bills whatsoever to add more depth to their wide receiving core. Last 2 picks, I think that the Kansas City Chiefs, they do need offensive line help. I think they go with Gray Zabel from North Dakota State. If there's one thing that the Chiefs' Achilles heel was, and it was apparent in the Super Bowl, it was offensive line. Their offensive line was absolutely atrocious against the Philadelphia Eagles. So I think in order to get Patrick Mahomes back in the Super Bowl, well, guess what? You need to shore up that offensive line. So I think they draft an offensive guard in this slot in the NFL draft. Now, when I look at the final pick in the first round, they need help on the edge. Philadelphia definitely needs help on the edge. As much as people would say probably Nick Scorton from Texas A&M would be picked here, I'm going to go with possibly my steal of the draft, Donovan Ezeraku from Boston College. I think that this will just add so much more depth to the Philadelphia Eagles defensive line. I know they lost some pieces to free agency, but I think having that extra edge rusher, get him involved with the team early with those great defensive players. I think Donovan Ezeraku is going to shock a lot of people, and I think he is going to be probably the steal of this draft. And that's going to wrap it up this week on The Lake Show, everyone. Again, I really appreciate you all making me a part of your day again. Be sure to like, subscribe, share with your friends, leave some comments down below. I'm your host, Dominic Lako. God bless.
I love the chase and the hunt, and I set the pace when I'm running. I always take what I want and I always give it 100. Don't need a bank, no I'm funded. Play the game like it's nothing. I'm always thankful for something. Don't take for granted, stay humble. Now wake up!